Welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, MyBookie.ag. And oh, man, it's wonderful to have you along for the ride. So, couple things. 1, 3. -3? Really? So we get done, watching the game and all that stuff, and I'm looking at the lines there on Bet Parks. Me, Seth Joyner, Derek Gunn, right? And I'm looking at the line. I'm like, I wonder what they're opening at, right? And I finally see it, all right? -3. The Eagles are the 3-point favorite at home against the Packers. Now, for those that just don't pay any attention to sports betting, if you're a 3-point favorite at home, that's even. That's like you get 3 points for being at home. Just for being at home. Just for being in your own cozy home, you get 3 points. So that's nothing in the sports betting world. And I went, that's horrifying, because immediately my mind went to Jalen Hurts and his status for Jalen Hurts, or the status of Jalen Hurts, because the only thing that really affects the line, like in any major way, is the status of a starting quarterback. And the other things can adjust a little bit, a half point here and there. But the major thing there is the health of a starting quarterback. And the Eagles, with Jordan Love getting hurt in the Packers game and Jalen Hurts not playing for the last, he's had 1 completion in the last 3 weeks. That tells you all you need to know. And your head coach really won't offer any update, will barely even admit that Jalen Hurts was at walkthrough the other day. It gets me kind of concerned about the status of a one Jalen Hurts for round 1 against the Green Bay Packers coming up this Sunday at 4:30. So then I wake up this morning and I see that the line has gone from -3 to -4 to now -4.5, at least on the Bet Parks app. So that's good to see. But still, that's 1.5 point favorites at home, essentially. 4.5 total, 1.5 bonus, I guess you could call it. Hopefully that keeps trending in the right direction. And it's the weirdest thing, because I rarely pay attention to lines, but when there's the or when there's the status of the starting quarterback, I'll pay attention to the line. So at least it's trending in the right direction. But if it would have opened at 5.5, let's say, I'd say, oh, okay, all right. I mean, still, I thought it would be more, but maybe 6.5. But what's the status of Jalen Hurts? And then I get home, and before I see the line trending in the right direction, I listened to Nick Sirianni after the game. And Nick Sirianni was close to the vest when it came to the status of Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts.
Same as what we talked
Same
about.
as Friday.
Yeah.
Nick, I know obviously you just won this game, but you do.
That was the bare minimum. That's what you call the bare minimum. And then Zach Berman follows up with like, oh, Jalen was at walkthrough, right? Because there was a report about Jalen walking through at
Well
practice.
coached.
Was Jalen present at the walkthrough yesterday?
Was he present at the walkthrough?
Yeah, was he there?
Yeah.
Does that represent a progression in the protocol?
Hey guys, I mean, he's progressing through the protocol. We've talked a lot about that. So yeah, no, you'll keep. And I respect your guys' question. I'm going to answer them all. But yeah, he's progressing through the protocol.
I respect it, but I'm going to scoff at it. Is what he's doing there. All right. Here's what I'd love to see happen. I'd love for, as the snow allegedly falls today, which it hasn't yet, at least in my area, and I'm like 20 minutes outside the city. As the snow falls today, the line goes more in the Eagles' direction and more in the Eagles' favor. I would love, by the time I do this show tomorrow, to have that line go up to 5.5. And then I'd love to see it go up to 6.5. And then I would love, when the injury report comes out on Wednesday for their first walkthrough of the week, I would love for Jalen Hurts to be estimated as someone who has walked through at practice. I'd like him to be from present at walkthrough. I'd like him to go from that to walking through. That's what I'd like to see. And the line is not exactly comforting me in the fact that that's going to happen. I'd just love to think that it's going to happen, but until I see some substantial evidence that it is going to happen, there's a little bit of concern. And I loved what I saw from Tanner McKee yesterday. Second half, not nearly good as the first. I think we can all admit that. But all in all, we will on this program today be giving Tanner McKee his flowers, as they done do say. We'll also be getting into Jahan Dotson's abilities when he's not the number 3 wide receiver and the number 6 target. Let's put it that way, because I was thinking about this yesterday with all the targets he was getting and the 7 catches and 94 yards, and the fact that throughout the season he had 12 catches for 122 yards, I believe it was. The fact that he had so much yesterday, I was like, well, let's do the math here. It's not just about being the 3rd wide receiver. It's about being the 5th or 6th best option, because you factor it in just in the receiving core standards, right? You obviously have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and then, Jahan Dotson, number 3. But then you would also have, as another weapon to call a play for, you'd obviously have Saquon Barkley. You obviously have Kenny Gainwell. You obviously have Dallas Goedert most of the time. And then Grant Calcaterra as well. So you're looking at those names, 5-6 names ahead of Jahan Dotson. So, yeah, when those names aren't there, Jahan Dotson's going to be your number 1 guy. And he was yesterday, and that was good. The more weapons that are greased, the merrier for any offense. So I'm glad to see that he got that. But most importantly, I'm glad that I saw a good performance from Jordan Davis on the defensive side of things. I saw a very aggressive Jeremiah Trotter Jr. playing linebacker. That was great to see. Oren Burks played very well yesterday also. Tristan McCullum, good Lord, man, wrap up. Don't just try to throw the shoulder into somebody like Malik Neighbors. He's going to trot into the end zone, which is exactly what he did on that play. But one thing I learned from watching yesterday's performance was, to me, you just can't justify Kenny Pickett being the number 2 guy. Now, Kenny Pickett might not even be healthy enough to be the number 2 guy in round 1 of the playoffs. So if it comes down to it where the doomsday scenario happens where Jalen Hurts can't play and Tanner McKee has to start, it's a little bit less of a doomsday scenario. Granted, what could happen with the Green Bay Packers, I don't want to make it sound like I'm rooting for injury, because I'm certainly not, but if they're not as close to 100% as a roster as they would like to be, it might even the playing field a little bit. But I will still call it this, in the unlikely scenario that Tanner McKee gets the start, I'm not all of a sudden hitting the panic button about the Eagles not being able to win the football game, because I'm going to revert a lot back to what I did when Carson Wentz went down, for instance, in 2017, 2018, which was, all right, just have a quarterback that's going to go in there. Don't lose the game. Let the defense and the run game dominate. I felt the same way about Jay Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount. I felt the same way about Jim Schwartz's defense that year. I feel even better about this defense this year, and I sure as hell feel even better about the run game this year. Do I feel as good as if it's Tanner McKee as if I did it was Nick Foles? No, but I still don't feel god-awful. Again, that's a doomsday scenario. I don't see that playing out. I'm going to go ahead and live in a world with Disney-colored glasses, rose-colored glasses, and just say, Jalen's going to be fine. And when that Wednesday report comes out, Jalen's name's not going to be on it, except for maybe the left finger. That's maybe the only thing. Maybe the left finger. But other than that, concussion protocol has been protocoled. It's been passed. He's through it. And he's on the practice field, estimatedly on the practice field, according to the report. As far as the game went yesterday, Tanner McKee was asked after the game what he thought he put on film. And that's what these guys live for, especially if you're a number 2 guy, number 3 guy. You live for what you could put on film. Now, do you live for winning? Yeah, sure you do. Do you win it? Do you try to get your 14th win of the season for your team, for your head coach, for your owner? Jeffrey Lurie's 300th win as the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles came courtesy of the quarterback play of Tanner McKee. How about that? Who had that on their bingo card this year? But McKee in total, 27-21 for 269 yards. Nice. 2 touchdowns. Was sacked twice for a loss of 17 yards. Longest pass play was 19 yards. And it could have even been better. He missed a couple throws, but there was one particular 3rd and 4 play to Dallas Goedert that he dropped. Womp womp. But overall, Tanner McKee played well. So here he is yesterday when he was asked about what he thinks he showed in yesterday's win.
I mean, looking internally, I just felt like I showed I have confidence in myself to go out and, operate, run the offense. I feel like for me, it just showed that my preparation's been, it's been working, I guess. Like, my preparation has, helped me just get to, how the offense was run today. And obviously there's a ton of things that we can change. We're going to go back and watch film, and there's a lot of things that, different checks or, progression or something that I did wrong. So obviously for me, it was a growing opportunity, which was great. So I'm happy to kind of get my feet wet a little bit. Obviously with my first start, and just, grow, watch the film, and learn from the experience.
All good things. All good things. I would agree with every ounce of that. And I think he answered the question perfectly when he was asked about the potential of starting next week. Really, all you need to hear is the first second of this. But hey, what do you think of the potential of starting next week?
I haven't thought about.
Let the record show he just laughed. Let the record show. The 24-hour rule is very much in effect with Tanner McKee. Like, I'm just going to enjoy the fact that I just played well in my first career start, that I just helped my team get their 14th win of the season. I'm going to go ahead and bask in that moment. And Mike Sielski asked the question, and I understand he's got to ask the question. And I'm curious to hear what Tanner McKee has to say to that question. But if you're Tanner McKee, I think you answered this absolutely perfectly.
I haven't thought about that. I'll let those guys answer any questions that they want about them. But obviously I'm going to do my preparation to play, because I've been doing that all season. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing the same thing. I'll be ready, whether I'm the 1, the 2, the 3, the 6, whatever that is. So yeah, it's just doing my own thing.
There you go, son. Way to be. That's how you answer that question. I'm just going to keep doing the thing that I've been doing that prepare me for this moment. And then if they need me, they tap on me and go in the game. Very simple. All in all, as far as his play went yesterday, I rattled off the numbers for you right there. I thought he played very well. In the second half, there were a couple of throws there that he missed, maybe a couple of bad reads. First half, I didn't think he made a bad read. Like, there were some bad throws. There was maybe bad timing. There were a couple instances on crossing routes. Like, the perfect example is the opening drive. He's perfect and hits Ainias Smith, for the touchdown on a crossing route. That was just perfectly timed. There are other instances there, maybe with Jahan Dotson, where he had him on a crossing route, and either the clock in the head of Tanner McKee was expedited due to pressure, or simply just the timing being off for having not thrown to Jahan Dotson maybe as much as he has with Ainias Smith. That's what he talked about after the game as well. That timing was just a little bit off, and you could tell that. But the read was right. Open receiver, went to the open receiver, missed the throw. It happens. Second half, it seemed like it happened with a little bit more frequency than it did in the first half. But overall, this is a guy making his first career start. This is a guy who threw, 4 passes in the NFL going into yesterday's game. I thought he played very well. I did not see him getting happy feet. If the clock was expedited in his head, it didn't really show other than the timing being off. But I never saw a guy who looked panicked. I never saw a guy who looked scared. And as I always tell you, I did not see a guy that looked like the moment was too big for him. He looked like he was ready for the moment yesterday. And you know that you're coming out firing. You know the game plan coming out. You know as a quarterback here that your first 5, 10, 15 plays that have been scripted for you, you know what you're doing on those plays. So the fact that he came out and he was on the money with his throws, that he got Dallas Goedert involved in the game, he went to Ainias Smith for the touchdown, and the fact that he was so fluid throughout the rest of the game, and that one bad drop to Dallas Goedert, he also had a bad snap that he took care of, which was good. Where the heck did I put that? In my notes. I guess I thought I wrote it down, but I guess I didn't. The one drop from Dallas Goedert was really the only hitch in his giddy up there in the first half. Everything else was on point. For me, again, I'll go back to it. If Kenny Pickett is not healthy enough to play, well, then obviously Tanner McKee is going to be the number 2 guy. But my point is, coming out of training camp, coming out of the preseason, the player that played better and should have been the number 2 guy is Tanner McKee. The reason he wasn't is because he doesn't have, at the time, 28 starts under his belt already in the NFL. It should be 28 games under his belt already at the NFL level, as Kenny Pickett did. Kenny McKee. Oh, geez. As Kenny Pickett did. But if you're saying it was a competition, the guy who should have won the competition was Tanner McKee. So All right, fine. You go up against the Dallas Cowboys. You're looking to lock up a division. You don't have your starting quarterback. Who's going to be the guy you go to? Is it going to be Kenny Pickett or is it going to be Tanner McKee? Well, the Eagles decided to go with Kenny Pickett. I understand. That's not a time to be breaking in a new backup quarterback. You want to go with the more of sure thing, the more known commodity. So they did that. Tanner McKee still got an opportunity to play in that game and played well. I said, okay, well, the moment's not too big for him. Now he got his moment to start an NFL game against a team that was not trotting out backups yesterday. The Giants even tried a fake punt yesterday, for crying out loud. They were trying to win that game. The Eagles had backup offensive line. Nick Gates was your center yesterday, and he had 2 bad snaps. And he still played well, Tanner McKee. So imagine him out there in a playoff game with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley. That makes things a lot easier for the guy as well. So I thought he rose to the occasion yesterday and proved to me that even if Kenny Pickett is a healthy quarterback, how do you tell anyone that Kenny Pickett is the better choice in the hopefully still unlikely scenario to go in as a backup quarterback over Tanner McKee? So yesterday for me, Tanner McKee stamp that he should be the number 2 guy behind Jalen Hurts. Now, as far as Jalen Hurts' status goes, Jordan Love said after the game, as did Matt LaFleur, that precautionary. They had already lost Christian Watson in the game yesterday to the Bears, or against the Bears. They did not want to lose their starting quarterback. They already have Jair Alexander out for the playoffs. I think the earliest he could come back is the Super Bowl if the Packers were to make it that far. I think the Eagles are going to have something to say about that. So they're already banged up. It was precautionary to take a quarterback out of the game when he had numbness in his pinky of his throwing hand. He had hit his elbow. It's listed as an elbow injury. They talked about a hand injury after the game. Jordan Love did address the media himself, as did Matt LaFleur, as you would assume. And they basically both made it sound like it was precautionary. So I don't know how banged up he is. I don't think it's going to affect his status. The bigger question is going to be Christian Watson, his number 1 wide receiver, who Derek Gunn always updates me on. It's just he's always getting hurt. And he's always dropping balls. Okay. But their bottom line is they're not going to come into Philadelphia anything close to 100% already with Jair Alexander being out. There's no team, and I watched the Lions yesterday. The Minnesota Vikings absolutely wet the bed yesterday. Sam Darnold was terrible, especially in the red zone yesterday. The Lions were giving opportunities to the Vikings, and the Vikings could not take advantage of those opportunities. Opportunity was knocking at the door. Then Sam Darnold's like, I think I would have missed a wide open receiver on a nice slant rub route there in the red zone, and just throw this one away. Jared Goff, 2 interceptions. The Vikings could cash those in for 3 points. They had an opportunity for a pick 6 dropped by Van Ginkel, who is a defensive player of the year candidate. Dropped a pick 6 in his hands from Jared Goff. Would have been 3 interceptions. Would have taken it to the house. Vikings had opportunities. And then once they didn't take advantage of those opportunities, the Lions were just like, well, all right. They didn't do anything with those, so we're going to go spank them. And that's exactly what they did. Jahmyr Gibbs had an incredible game yesterday for the Lions. But good Lord. I look at this NFC, and there are some great football teams in this NFC. I can't remember a time where you looked at the standings, for instance, and you saw so many 14-win teams. You have a 15-win team, obviously, and the Lions is the number 1 seed. This is a very competitive – I mean, just look at yesterday's game. The Vikings are playing for the number 1 seed, and they lose. And with 14 wins, they get bumped down to, what, a 5 seed? What an incredible year for football. And I know you can factor in the fact that they play, a 17th game now and all that is for more wins, and that makes sense. But wow, that is just bonkers. And for so many teams to take advantage of those opportunities is pretty incredible this year. But looking at the standings in the NFL, seeing that the Eagles as a 14-win team are not a number 1 seed is insane. 15-win Lions, 14-win Vikings. And then you look at all these 10-win teams elsewhere. 11-win Packers are 3rd in their own division. The Commanders win 12 games. And then the Buccaneers, the Rams, and the Seahawks, who missed the playoffs, are a 10-win team. What a year for the NFL. If you're Roger Goodell, you're looking at this going like, yes, look at all these good teams. You're going to be set up for good games throughout the playoffs. It's pretty wild. As for being a 14-win team, this is the second time, obviously, that Nick Sirianni has been able to accomplish 14 wins in a season. That is the most wins. Andy Reid, here's what I'll say. 14 wins, fine, with a 17-game season. Okay. Andy Reid has only won 13 games once. He only won 13 games once as the head coach of the Eagles. And 12-win seasons, I think he had 4 or 5 of them with the Eagles. He only won 13 games once. Nick Sirianni has won them twice. 14-win seasons. 2 14-win seasons now. Here's Nick Sirianni after the game talking about what goes into a 14-win season.
Yeah, it's taken a lot of people to win 14 games. There's been a lot of contributions from a lot of different people. Had some bumps and bruises along the way, and a lot of guys have stepped in and played. When you win 14 games, it takes everybody. And Fred coming in and playing a lot of plays, and excuse me, Isaiah and Grant Calcaterra and Orrin Burks, and so and then being able to go out and do Kenny Pickett, and then going out and doing what we did today with the guys that went out there and played. So good depth, unbelievable job by Howie and his staff to get the depth in here. Unbelievable job by the coaches to develop those players, and unbelievable job by the players.
There we go. It takes a village, folks. It takes a village to be this good. It goes without saying, but I do think about that next man up mentality. And then I think about things that went into this season and how incredible this season was. Like, they're not a number 1 seed. They won their division. They had a bad taste left in our mouths thanks to the loss to the Commanders in a game where you lost your starting quarterback when he was coming off one of his best games of the season, and certainly his best game in a long while, where the passing game was the star of the show and not their running back, Saquon Barkley. But when I think back on this season, I think about the problems. I always go back to, at the end of every year, I always go back to the problems I anticipated, and a lot of us anticipated in the preseason, and whether or not they came to fruition. Like, for instance, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I had a really good feeling about the season when the concern was that, like, Nick Foles had, I think, barely played that preseason, and we didn't know about the long snapper. Like, those are the major problems going in. Like, what are they going to do without a long snapper? I'm like, wow, if these are the concerns, we're in pretty good shape. Like, this is a good thing. And everything turned out to be great. Rick Lovato turned out to be great. Obviously, Nick Foles turned out to be great. So those things are just like, yeah, wow. I think it's going to be a pretty good year if those are the concerns. And then this year, I was like, okay, is Vic Fangio going to be as good as advertised? Is Kellen Moore going to go out there and he's going to be as good as advertised? Is he going to be exactly what this offense needs? Less of Nick Sirianni in the game planning and play calling certainly seems like something that this team would need. And then they ended up reverting back to a lot of the stuff that they ended up doing in the 2017 season. So maybe Nick Sirianni had a little bit more to do with that than we thought. Howie had an incredible offseason. Questions about Cooper DeJean, Quenyon Mitchell being NFL ready. Yeah. Wow, a guy that can't draft a corner to save his life nails 2 in the very same draft in back-to-back picks. That's pretty, I should say, in successive picks. That's pretty damn good. There was this guy in New Orleans who was a special teamer, an edge rusher, outside linebacker. Never really got a chance to prove what his full worth could be in the NFL. And Howie Roseman says, hey, here's a special teamer and edge rusher, outside linebacker that I want you to take a look at here, Vic. What do you think? And Vic looks at it and says, I think you have my inside linebacker. Howie's like, inside linebacker? And like, yeah. Like, wow. Okay. Pro Bowler, Zach Bond. Cam Jurgens, who is not Jason Kelsey, for those that are unaware. He's Cam Jurgens. Cam Jurgens' off-field venture is beef jerky. Jason Kelsey's off-field venture is pretty much everything in media now, everything. But Cam Jurgens goes out there, and his first season as a starting center is a Pro Bowler. Jalen Carter, this season, I'm going to go ahead and say still a young player, still hasn't reached his full potential, but has given you a beautiful glimpse of what the future can hold. I told you guys last week, for whatever reason, on YouTube, in my algorithm, old Eagles games have been coming up, like gangrene defense and all that stuff. And I'm watching Jerome Brown, and I'm seeing the similarities. I mean, I was a kid when he was playing, but I'm now an old man, and I'm watching now. I'm like, he's just in control. If he's not winning every battle, he's controlling every battle, which pretty much means he's winning it. And I've seen the same exact thing from Jalen Carter. And you talk about maturity. The one thing you can look back on is the little head slap there in that Steelers game. But other than that, I'm seeing a guy really come into his own. And I really look forward to the near future and the distant future of Jalen Carter and what his career is going to be here in Philadelphia. And he is not disappointed. Jordan Davis does not get asked to do nearly as much as Jalen Carter. We can all agree on that. I mean, that's just factual, looking at the snap counts and all that. But yesterday, against a team that was trying to pull out a lot of the stops throughout the game, except when it was close at the end, and then they just started committing penalties on purpose. But Jordan Davis, especially in that first half, showed that he wanted to put some good stuff together and go into the playoffs playing at a high level. And also, look, somebody's got to play. Milton Williams was out there yesterday making plays. I think he had 2 tackles for loss yesterday. If he didn't, he should have been credited with at least 2 tackles for loss. He went out there and played well. But all in all, Jalen Carter did exactly what I wanted him to do this year. He reached his potential for this year, and I think he's still only going to get better. He closed the gap on his ceiling, I think is a good way to put it. Jordan Davis, consistency. Need that consistency. I don't think he was nearly as bad as some people thought this year when you talk about showing up on the stat sheet, that it wasn't as much. No, it wasn't. But when he talks about taking up double teams, or he talks about getting more pressure because Jalen Carter's taking up a double team, that's what people need to focus on. And I think he did a lot of that this year. Was it as much as I expected from him this year? No. But it was at least play worthy of the comment that Fletcher Cox wasn't coming to save him this year. It was worthy of understanding that mindset going into this season. So I liked what I saw there. Darius Slay this year, I thought was disappointing. I also thought he was playing through a lot of injuries, but at his age, that's kind of going to become the norm, if not already. But I look back on this season and I think about guys that needed to work out for this team. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson worked out for this team. It was a rough first 4 weeks of the season, but he certainly came around. Reed Blankenship dealt with some injuries, but he was able to get some interceptions on the season. Overall, I thought played well. And this offensive line just continues to be, especially with Saquon Barkley running behind it, the most dominant force in the NFL. And when I look at the fact that Saquon did not go for the record, and I know we talked about this a lot last week, and I'm not going to live in the past saying he should have played yesterday, but I'm not getting into that. But what I'm saying is one of the saving graces of him not playing in yesterday's game is, okay, he'll just go for it next year. I know a lot has to go right. Health is the number one thing. But when I look back on the other 2,000-yard rushers, the best season anybody had after that was immediately after that was 1,800 yards. So in the 1,800-yard mark. 17-game schedule. This offensive line. Saquon Barkley's immense talent, which is not going anywhere next year. Again, I have to say it because it's obligatory. He stays healthy. He's going to be right back in this spot this year. Somebody, I forget who it was in the comments yesterday, when I said on the post-game show, I said, if this game matters, he's playing. It wasn't to make the point that if this game matters, he's playing. It was that it came so close to him playing a full 17-game schedule, and if he did, he beats the record. If Saquon doesn't sit out at the end against the Giants, if Saquon Barkley doesn't get the what do you call it, the off day in the second, or I forget which game it was the Giants, and then I'm blanking on the next one. If he doesn't take off in those fourth quarters, then he beats the record. So he will absolutely have a chance, if he stays healthy, to break the record next year. And I think next year, when Nick Sirianni goes up to him and says, hey, do you want to stay in the game or you want to go for a career high? I don't think Saquon's going to be like, yeah, let the young guys eat. I think Saquon's going to be thinking of his dad, who was so greatly disappointed that he didn't get the record this year, at least didn't get the opportunity to get the record this year at the last game of the season. I think he's going to go, yeah, no, I'll keep playing. Give me 2 more runs. Just give me 2 more. I feel like I can break one. Just give me 2 more. And then see if those add up to a demolishing of a 40-year-old record. I do think about the crazy records in sports, just how long they've been. And you know who else got me started on this? Seth yesterday. When he was like, how many records do the Eagles hold? Because part of Seth's standpoint on why Saquon should play is like, how many records do the Eagles hold? And I was thinking about it, I was like, well, Reggie White had the sack record. 21 sacks in 1987. And Nick Foles has the record for 7 touchdowns in a season, but he shares that with like 27 other guys. But that's pretty good. But that's it. That's it. It would be a nice record for the Eagles to hold. It certainly would. But unfortunately, it was not meant to be. Let me go back to this. When I look back on the season, I look at the questions I had before the year about Zach Bond. I mean, we're talking about Devin White, for instance, who went on to play for the Texans and on defense only played 31% of the snaps, but still more than he did with the Eagles. But Nakobe Dean certainly worked out this year. Again, Zach Bond worked out this year. Cam Jurgens, Mekhi Becton all worked out this year. Jordan Mailata was the highest rated football player this year. Pause. Jordan Mailata was the highest rated football player this year. Pause. Rewind again. Jordan Mailata was the highest rated football player this year by Pro Football Focus. Not tackle. Not offensive lineman. Not left tackles from Australia. Highest rated football player in the NFL this year. Not a Pro Bowler. Of all the jobs in the NFL, the guy that did it the best was Jordan Mailata. Not a Pro Bowler. Make it make sense. When it came to Eagle fatigue, like you're not going to put the whole offensive line in there, I was like, I thought the guy that would get snubbed would be Cam Jurgens, of all people. Because I thought last year was the year that Mailata would get snubbed. And then this year, oh no, double snubbed? That's a double snubbing. But Cam Jurgens got in. 1 year as a center in the NFL, bang, one of the best in the business to do it. Okay, that was quick. Not mad at him. Just saying, there's all those little Eagles offensive line fatigue, little Stoutland fatigue throughout NFL voters, unfortunately. But I look back at all the questions you had going into the season, and the Eagles just continued to hit it out of the park. 10 wins in a row. 10 wins in a row. Devontae Smith catches that ball. You're looking at 15 wins on the season. Saquon Barkley catches that ball in week 2. You're looking at 16 wins. Like when you look at the standings and you see a 15-win Detroit Lions team, for crying out loud. And then you look at the 14-win Vikings. You look at the 12-win Commanders. You look at how good these teams were this year in the NFL. And you think about the little things that just go right for the Eagles, and you're talking about them being the number 1 seed. Now, that is 1,000% revisionist history. Let's not get it twisted. It absolutely is revisionist history. But those 2 plays in particular are the difference between the Eagles being a 14-win team, which is still great, and a 16-win number 1 seed. Hey, look, the Vikings got games you can look back on. The Lions have games you can certainly look back on. 2 you can look back on. But man, oh man, I hope we get the opportunity to see the Lions go up against the Eagles. I really hope we get that opportunity. I think the Lions are going to give the Eagles all they can handle. And I think the Eagles come out on top of that victory. I've been saying it all year, and I'm sticking to it. If you just go by if the Eagles had that ball in their hands, if Nakobe Dean had that ball in his hands, Zach Bond had that ball in his hands, you're talking about a pick 6 that Van Ginkel dropped. You get into the red zone, Eagles are scoring those touchdowns yesterday. I can't believe Sam Darnold. They ran a perfect play on the 4th and goal. They ran the 3rd and goal play, and there was nothing. Everyone was blanketed. Like, I don't fault Sam Darnold for that. It was great defense by I can say that as a non-Vikings and Lions fan, but Sam Darnold, there was nothing to throw to. He had no play, so he threw it away. There's a play earlier in the game where he just overthrew Justin Jefferson horrendously. Even Justin Jefferson turned around like, dude, what the hell? And then get back to the 2nd and goal, nothing to go to. 4th and goal, they go for it, where a field goal would have drawn them to within a point. They go for it, and I don't know what the hell he was looking at. I guess it wasn't his first read, but Sam Darnold to his right has I forget who it was, but wide open on the rub route, slant, touchdown, doesn't see him, ends up scrambling around, throws late to Addison, who was blanketed at that point, and nothing. They get a field goal out, or no, so they get nothing there. Then they get an interception, and then they get a field goal out of that. But yeah, I think it's going to be a hell of a game with the Lions and the Eagles if they do get the opportunity to match up against one another. But I do think between the Vikings, who they played twice, obviously, in the Packers are nothing to scoff at in that division as well. But I do think the best game that they're going to have this season, in terms of like not the best game that they're going to have, but the toughest opponent they'll see all year is going to be the Eagles if they face the Eagles this year. I want to see it. It's the matchup we've all been waiting for. We got the Ravens game, and that went in the Eagles' favor, obviously. But Eagles-Lions is what everyone wants to see. And I hope they get that opportunity. Imagine that, the Eagles going on the road, pulling out that win in Detroit Rock City. Yes, please. There's one more thing I wanted to play for you guys. No, that wasn't it. Cam Jurgens, after the game, just talked about how right now is the time to shine.
It's do or die time, win or lose, win or go home, and, time to dive in and see if I feel like a lot of stuff has changed. I feel like it's been a year since we played them last. It's in Brazil, my God. Reset and get ready for this postseason.
In Brazil, by God. 2 Brazil references yesterday. One, when Tanner McKee sat down, he looked out and saw the whole field of reporters, right? And he just goes, wow, I feel like I'm back in college. And then I don't know if it was Brent Strosacker or if it was Bob Lang from Eagles PR. They were like, or Brazil. Because Tanner McKee, who spoke a little Portuguese, was very popular in Brazil. And there's like, or Brazil. And Tanner McKee's like, yeah, Brazil. How about that? So now they're going to face the Packers for the first time since Brazil. That does feel like a billion years ago. Hey, before I get out of here, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to check the Bet Parks app one more time and just see what's what. But it was -4. So it went from 3 to -4. Let's keep trending in that right direction. Hey, let me tell you about the amazing people at the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code FARS, and get $20 off your first purchase on the Game Time app. Want to go to the game? Want to go to the concert? Want to go to the comedy show? Game Time app has you covered with it all. And let's not forget about Game Time Picks, which allows you to filter out all the fluff and get right down to it. The best seats at the best prices on the Game Time app. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code FARSY, get $20 off your first purchase on the Game Time app. Let's get into the chat check. PHL Sports Station, Philadelphia Sports Station, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's PHLSportsNation.com. Quick chat check today. Unfortunately, I got to run out of here. Robert M., hello. April, hello. Drew, hello. Deshay, hello. April again. Sean. Sean Kilrain. Charles, I forgot I had a radio hit today. I apologize. Everyone, you're awesome, and I love you dearly. Have a great rest of your day. My name is Mark Farzetta. I'll be back with you guys tonight for Locked On Sixers postcast. See you guys then. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.